All right, Aiden, we are now joined by one of our all-time favorite guests. I think it's maybe fifth time on the show, the one and only Jay Tuck. Nobody covers the Cowboys like Tuck. I mean, we've had so many people on that cover the Cowboys, like Mike Tagg. We've been on so many different shows, but it's always a pleasure to have somebody that dives so deep into football and is such a draft guy like we are. We love having you on, Tuck. Welcome back, baby.
Man, thanks for the warm welcome, and I appreciate you guys for having me on. It's always a fun time just to talk football. Like we were talking before the show started, man. Season is here, so let the fun begin, man. Let the fun begin. But thanks for having me.
Of course. And all right, so we were talking before we started recording too that we not only wanted to have you on because we like your opinions, we like having you on the show, we love chopping it up with you, but you were boots on the ground in Oxnard at Dallas Cowboys camp last week, so we had to have you on. But the first thing I want to talk to you about is a moment that happened when you weren't there, right? And I've seen it all over social media. You know where I'm going at. We have to talk about Shady and Acho being there. Your thoughts? I've seen your thoughts on Twitter, but tell the people.
Yeah. So yesterday, man, I was boiling. And thanks for Cowboys Nation for really just kind of being my therapy session yesterday and letting me vent. But my whole take on it was like, I get it that they're from FS1. They have the speak for yourself show or whatnot. But, why put your players in that situation? You know the things that Shady McCoy in particular has said about Dak Prescott. You saw the back and forth Trayvon Diggs had. I don't want my players to be in a situation where they're uncomfortable. It'd be like, some guys were talking trash about you and we're going out to the bar and eating. I invite these random guys over. Like, it just puts you in an awkward spot. It can change your spirit, change your vibe. Why even have that? And especially if they're not even there for due coverage, right? So, I was kind of frustrated with that, but also just from the standpoint, when I was out there at Oxnard, a lot of content creators, writers, bloggers, podcasters, they had to sit in the bleachers. Like they get limited access. And, the access that I had to pull so many different strings and, players actually vouching for me and saying, no, he's good, he can come. Versus for these guys, they get the red carpet treatment for a photo op. They dance in your practice field and dip. It just didn't sit right with me, but I get it. Cowboys always want, part of that media circus, but I'm just tired of the, all media is good media. Like that's not true. Like sometimes it's just like, listen, if you're not for us and going to do anything positive for our team, then you don't get access to our team and to our players. But, Jerry just wanted to roll off the red carpet yesterday. So, but I saw Acho, me and him had a, extensive conversation on Twitter. It sounds like his Dak take, he just posted it. He's trying to add context and different things. So I'm like, yeah, just, clean up your act. But it's like, I can't trust him. I get it. You probably did it yesterday because we were lighting you on a new one yesterday. Like, let's see you continue that throughout the season, but we'll see.
People forget he was in the building, too. He worked for DallasCowboys.com, and so many people forget that.
Right, exactly. It's like, better. And I get it, right? It's entertainment. It's Hollywood. You got producers telling, hey, turn things up a notch. And when we played the Tampa Bay Bucks in the playoff game, I was on set for First Take. So I know it's very WWE, but you can still be entertaining and talk football with context and nuances and different things like that. Like, don't insult fans' intelligence, but, it's...
It's one of those shows. It's not for the substance and the detail.
Right.
And it's been very prevalent with the Cowboys because of the 10 interception thing with Dak Prescott. And anybody can kind of pick and choose clips at training camp to paint a narrative for somebody. So being there live, how did Dak Prescott look? Because us on social media only get to see one side of things.
Oh, yeah. Dak looks great. And the one thing that stood out to me early was just how fast and in rhythm the offense is. It's very simplified. And you heard a lot of players talk about that, from Jalen Tolbert to Kevontae Turpin to even Dak Prescott, Simi Fioco. The list goes on. And I really like this offense. It's in sync and it's simplified, and they're playing a lot faster. I mean, you already feel the impact of Brandin Cooks. So when it comes to Dak Prescott, my one concern about Dak, and was a concern, I would say my improvement area, which is ball placement, like putting the ball in spot. But that's, there's always little tweaks that any quarterback can work on. But I feel like the ball placement is a lot better than what I've seen thus far. And what I mean by that is when you're running a slant, putting it where Michael Gallup's actually in stride, catches the slant versus, reaching back behind him. So, those little things I really watch Dak closely, and he's in full command of this offense. Mike McCarthy has said that, like, hey, if you don't like a play, let's get out of it. If you want to change something at the line of scrimmage, you change it. It is yours. It is on the quarterback. And I feel like Dak is really taking command. With the interceptions thing, to me personally, it's just low hanging fruit. Dak has never had an interception problem. It was just an easy narrative to kind of pick on, last year because of the 17. But, people don't understand. You might see, okay, Dak threw 3 interceptions, but what was the drill? And sometimes the drill, it might be, okay, Mike McCarthy come to the megaphone, okay, 3rd and 11, right? So that's the drill. So you're running like 6 reps of 3rd and 11. Well, our defense is no damn slouch. Like they're gonna make plays, and so it's like, I get it. It's kind of, jokes on the Cowboys, but it's like, how am I going to know if I can trust, Simi Fioco on a deep route if I can't trust it in practice? Like, where am I supposed to do it? So should I wait in private where there's no cameras around? No, air it out and see if he can jump and go get it. If he can't go get it in practice, well, he's not going to get that opportunity throughout the game. So it's just, we're talking about practice, man. Practice, like as a great Allen Iverson would say.
I love, we talked about this, Aiden and I, on our previous show. It's people just don't forget, or they don't know how training camp goes, right? They just see these clips and like, oh, Dak threw 3 interceptions. They didn't play a 60-minute game and he threw 3 interceptions. He ran the same drill 12 times. The defense is like, oh yeah, all right, I see it. I can jump it. It's not that the defense is set up for success in those regards.
Yeah, they really are. And me as a former player, I used to like that. We do scout team because I know the play. So like I know you're about to pass, right? So I know I'm not going to get double team off this edge. It's go times. I can look like a superstar. So I get it, and I just think it feels like the last 2 years where the training camp videos have kind of boomed, and it's just like, whoa, let's pump the brakes. I know we're all excited for football, but I'm not going to mark a player off because I saw a clip on Twitter. Like if you don't, like Cowboys fans in particular, like they'll
like Mozzie Smith's first rep of training.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I was like Mozzie Smith, got his first welcome to the NFL, right? Because he got chip blocked with Tyron Smith and Tyler Smith. Okay, just joking. Oh, see, he was a horrible. I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. I'm just saying, like, there's a play out of a whole 2-hour practice where he kind of got, chipped a little bit. So, I always tell people, man, you'll see Steph Curry probably airball a few at practice. LeBron James probably brick a dunk at practice. We're talking about practice, so don't buy too much into it. But overall, to answer your question, man, I think Dak Prescott's looking good thus far.
Love it. All right, so what I've seen and heard too is Brandin Cook's speed looks insane, and Stephon Gilmore's smarts look off the charts. So seeing them both live in person, who do you think has the bigger impact this season for the Dallas Cowboys?
Ooh, it's hard. That's a real good question, because if we're thinking about on the field impact, I think that Brandin Cooks just naturally is, because I think that was the biggest uplift that we needed was with our wide receiver core. But Stephon Gilmore is going to change life in Dallas as well. I'm just saying because Brandin Cooks is able to take a Jalen Tolbert under the wing, and you're seeing Jalen Tolbert kind of emerge, right? So I would kind of give the slight edge to Brandin Cooks because I feel like he's going to make things easier for Dak. He's going to make things easier for our young wide receivers. And I think that he's really going to open up our offense and make things easier for Mike McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer. Though Stephon Gilmore is going to take Trayvon Diggs under the wing. He's kind of just, on an island. So it's like I would give the slight nod to Brandin Cooks. But overall, man, those 2 signings those were my shut the hell up signings. I was like, all right, I'll shut up. Say like, all right, Steven, like, we're kind of focused on DeAndre Hopkins. Like, nope, I got this. I got that. I'm like, all right, well.
So, love those where you're like, all right, I can be confident in the person running my team. All right, I'm done. I will not complain.
Exactly.
And the deeper we get into training camp and seeing those 2 guys, right, we see how Jalen Brooks is performing. We see how Eric Scott's performing. It shuts me up even more of the offseason that they've had.
Yeah. So I just did a film breakdown today on Jalen Brooks, and he's having a phenomenal camp, and he definitely has to be considered to make the final 53 roster. Now, of course, we're still early in the process, but man, he's looking tremendous. And then, you mentioned Eric Scott, and like I say, like I do a lot of draft content, as you guys know, and I'm embarrassed about Eric Scott because he literally lives in my neighborhood. And he was completely off. Like he goes to this high school that I go run. Like he lives here. I talked to his parents. Like he's from Kansas City, and I had no idea who this kid was. So I remember reading the news, here in Kansas City after a draft. I'm like, 4 players drafted to the NFL out of Kansas City and Dallas Cowboy. I'm like, who the hell did we draft? Like in my notes, I'm like Eric Scott. I'm like, And so when I went back and watched Eric Scott, the one film I had, unfortunately, was him versus Jalen Tolbert. And Jalen Tolbert went from like 200 and something yards. Like he went crazy on Eric Scott. So I was like, okay. We're kind of going with this. But I tell Cowboys Nation, man, this kid is lining it up at camp. I'm so excited. I can't wait for everyone to really see him. But he's aggressive. He's doing a lot of different things. He has a swagger about him. And, the coaching staff loves him. The coaching staff loves him. You can kind of see his energetic aspect that he's bringing to our defense already. So I'm like, man, Will McClay, I'll take my hat off. Looks like you hit again on, some home runs that a lot of people had off their radar. So salutes to Will McClay and the scouting staff.
Amen. If he stays playing that way, you're going to have to bake some cookies and go knock on the door in the
neighborhood. Yeah. So it's, like I said, I got to meet his family out there at camp. I was like, he's like, oh, yeah. So they literally probably live like 3 blocks. So
that's pretty wild.
So like, hey neighbor, I said he's my cousin now. I'm just gonna claim like, oh yeah, Eric Scott's my cousin, man.
What's up, cuz?
We've been like this,
right? Grew up in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, we grew up, man.
He was number 1 on my draft board.
Yeah, he gets some white out.
Let's stick with the offense. We talked about Dak. We've talked about Brandin Cooks, the running back position. Tony Pollard, first time being a 3-down back. Deuce Vaughn, love him, but on the smaller side. And then Ronald Jones has been suspended. Do you think the Cowboys look at what's a pretty hefty free agent running back market? Do you think they're done with running backs? How do we feel about that position right now?
Yeah, I know it's a lot of question marks when it comes to the running back room. And I think when it comes to Cowboys fans, it's just unfamiliar territory because we had Zeke and then we had Pollard, right? So we've been good for so many years. But now, like you mentioned, it's just Tony Pollard and them. But I feel like we're good. You have Rico Dowdle, who's, hasn't really got his opportunity in the league as of yet due to injuries. He's playing well at camp. I'm personally, the conductor of the Malik Davis train. I love Malik Davis out of Florida. Had some good quality reps last year, so I'm excited about him. So I feel like the Cowboys are going to sit back, watch camp. They're going to watch preseason and really gauge it. And it would have to be a catastrophe where things kind of fall to the cracks or injury where they're going to pick up the phone and call that ex-girlfriend Ezekiel Elliott back or, Kareem Hunt or, I just feel like they're going to sit back, really analyze and say, okay, what do we got? But I just don't think that they're going to be that bad for the Cowboys to actually have to pick up the phone unless there's an injury. So, granted, I would love to have Zeke back because when I was watching the draft and once everything kind of wrapped up, I'm like, man, this team is kind of fit perfectly for 21, because Brian Schottenheimer is saying we want to run the ball, rain, sleet, snow. We don't care what's going on. And you want to play power football. And you got this big physical tight end addition and Luke Schoonmaker. And now you have some speed to take the top off so you can't stack the box. And I'm just like, he had 12 touchdowns and almost 800 yards on it. But But, I wish Zeke the best, but I would be shocked if he actually returns to Dallas, unfortunately. So I'm sorry, Cowboys Nation. So
if they did go after somebody, you'd say Zeke over Kareem Hunt. Because my point with Kareem Hunt to Kevin was he's used to being the backup behind Nick Chubb. He kind of fills that role. It's hard for Zeke, who's been the guy, to then be behind Pollard. But like you said, the scheme kind of fits him.
Yeah, well, I love Zeke. Got his jersey and everything back there. But if I can choose, I would go get Dalvin Cook.
That would also help.
Open up the wallet, a little bit. Steven, give me the keys. I would go get Dalvin Cook. But yeah, I just think that there's no way that you could bring Zeke back to have him as the backup. The fans aren't gonna, it's just gonna be, So it would have to be like something bad happen. But yeah, Kareem Hunt, he's a quality back, what he was doing here in Kansas City before his situation, like he still has a lot in the tank. But I think with Ronald Jones and Deuce Vaughn, as you mentioned, Rico and Malik, and then also Hunter Lupke, it's just going to be more of a spell back by committee. It's not a running back by committee because Tony Pollard should get all of those touches, right? It's just after that. So I'm not too concerned about the running back room. The only thing I'm really concerned about is that Zach Martin seems to just be tossing money out the window where he doesn't care, right? All right, well, if your offensive line's a little shaky, okay, so running back being in pass pro, like you have to be buttoned up because you can't put our quarterback at risk. So that's kind of my concern as of right now. But, overall, I'm not too concerned. I think we'll be perfectly fine at the running back room.
So do you think they keep 4? Because I think it's going to be Pollard. I think they keep both Dowdle and Malik. And I think Deuce Vaughn's on this team. But I think he's also going to be more shifting in between that wide receiver and running back room. And I actually think that Deuce is going to touch the ball more than wide receiver, or excuse me, running back 3, even though he'll be running back 4 on the depth chart. But I think they keep all 4.
And see, it's hard, right? Because it's like, okay, if you're looking at Pollard, Malik, Rico, and Deuce, I know that they brought in Hunter Luepke for a reason, and Mike McCarthy's been very adamant about having a fullback. So how do you stash him? So you're not going to keep 5 running backs.
Yep.
So, something's going to have to give. I think they're going to be strategic this year about, okay, who can we possibly stash on practice squad and maybe hide a little bit? That might come into play, because you have to remember this year, there's no like steps when you're cutting. There's no like, first cut, second cut. Like it's all some like, hey, after that last preseason game,
see it.
50 people getting cut, getting axed, right? So, they'll probably just sit back and play it that way. I don't know, because like with this wide receiver room, I mean, it's getting tight in there, and I'm trying to squeeze, the Jalen Brooks is in there, and also the Jalen Marinos. Like there's still a lot of guys. So I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to put them, on waivers. And every year I panic and freak out. Malik Davis was my guy last year. I thought he failed. Like, y'all cut Malik. Like, there's no way he's going to get through waivers. And all of a sudden like, okay, well, just don't do it again. Right. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. The Cowboys got a lot of work to do to get down to this final 53. And, with not having the, the pandemic kind of rules and protocols, you can't be as sneaky as they were doing. Like, okay, we'll stash this guy on IR and, bring him back. Like, you can't do that this year. So it's going to be interesting how that works out.
All right. So you just mentioned the wide receiver room, right? So as of right now, for me, it would be Lamb, Cooks, Gallup, Turpin, Tolbert, and Brooks. I don't think Semi Fajoko's on this team. I think that's where it stops at 6. Maybe try and bring him back. Is that sort of where you're at?
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at as of today. I feel like Jalen Brooks, as a 7th round pick out of South Carolina, he is showing a lot. And he's not just showing a lot as a wide receiver, he's also showing a lot on special teams as well. We know that Mike McCarthy speaks very highly about special teams contribution. So, when I did my video a second ago, he spoke with the Dallas Cowboys draft show with Aisha and also Brian Broaddus about he prides himself on special teams. Like he foams at the mouth for special teams, because he was a Division II guy who went to the SEC, and he really didn't get a lot of opportunity at South Carolina. He was kind of lost in the shuffle. So, for him, he's very blue collar. He's just trying to get it in how he can get in. So, I think that's going to give him the nod over Simi. Simi has a lot to kind of catch up, and I don't think the politics of him being a draft pick or earlier draft pick is going to be enough to save him, because he's had some drops, he had some lapses, not having a bad camp. But what I'm focusing on when I'm looking at players, like, are you able to stack days? Were you good on Monday, good on Tuesday, you're off on Wednesday, were you good on Thursday, versus you were good on Monday, Tuesday was kind of shaky, Wednesday, Thursday was Saturday you look good. Like, those are the type of things I'm focusing on. And when it comes to Jalen Brooks, it's just every day. And also Jalen Tolbert, it's just every day they're stacking. And I know the Cowboys, coaching staff is going to take that into consideration.
Aiden, I know you're rooting for Semi because you love wide receivers out of Stanford.
Oh,
yeah.
JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I wonder what
there you go. Yeah, and Simi's a good kid. I love Simi out of Stanford. He did an interview the other day, and he talked about the Texas Coast offense is what they read at Stanford. So he's excited. But I mean, there's drops, there's lapses. I mean, speaking of Dak interceptions, that was one just throwing a deep ball to Simi. So, it's just one of those things where, hey, man, it's the NFL. Like, everybody is fighting for a job and for a position. So may the best man win. So we'll see.
Consistency in any job will get you a lot of places and a lot of promotions. So that's
exactly.
Also very true in the NFL.
Last one for me is about Mr. Consistency, and you mentioned his name already, Zach Martin. Been the most consistent Dallas Cowboy, I would say, since he joined the team. Just a perennial Pro Bowler, first ballot Hall of Famer, but he is not at camp. He is still getting dinged with $50,000 a day. Jerry is towing that line and still holding firm. How do you think this ends and when?
Honestly, it's getting a lot uglier than I originally expected. Funny, I just finished the Johnny Manziel documentary on Netflix, man, because I'm a huge Manziel fan. Like, that's still my QB too.
We were just talking about it. I can't wait to watch it.
Can't wait to watch it. We're done. We're going to watch it right now.
So before I was actually a draft analyst, and I was just an emotional fan. Like, I threw a fit drafting Zach Martin because I'm like, guard or are you kidding me? Like, like whatever. But I learned my errors and my ways. But, when it comes to Zach Martin, it's a tricky situation because normally like your blue-blooded players like a Sean Lee or, like those types of players, like they just kind of get everything that they ask for in Dallas, right? But to see the Jones is actually putting their foot down, like, nah, bro, we're going to go on without you. And he's slowly bleeding out. Like, I don't care how much money he made. Like, he lost like 2.4 million today. I think over he can lose like, like 500, something like it's something crazy, like some crazy amount that he can lose by just sitting and holding out. And the Cowboys don't seem to be budging. Now, I'm not sure how this is going to play out because I feel like they're going to have to extend Zach Martin because he's going to be $24 million against the cap next year. But how long are they asking for? What is his agent pushing for? If you're wanting to make Zach Martin the highest paid guard in the NFL, the Cowboys might scoff at that a little bit. Like, bro, you're good, but you're getting older, And I always go back and tell people, I remember after the pandemic that he did a radio on 105 through the Fan. He talked about how he was close to retirement and his wife was really pushing for him to retire. So I can't give you a 4 or 5 year deal, bro, when you and your wife can say,
you got 2 years left.
Exactly. So it's going to be interesting to see it play out. But I feel like Zach Martin does have the leverage because Josh Ball that ain't the answer out there. And then they got Brandon Hoffman and Mike
Let's go play in there. But now McCarthy's like, oh, he's just strictly center.
Yeah, so just like if they would have went guard in the draft and had some younger bloods there, then maybe they could, kind of play a little leverage. But I just don't see us going out there week one without Zach Martin. But they're probably just going to make them bleed out a little bit, to be honest with you. So, but this is a very important piece for our championship run to have Zach Martin out there. No ifs, ands, buts about it.
See, you guys wouldn't have to worry about
in an offense where you want to ground and pound.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have to worry about this dilemma if you just drafted the quarterback who had his dad fake a heart attack at the combine.
Right, yeah, exactly. Like we've been perfectly fine. Like the funny thing, I was wondering, like I don't remember back, but like why were we even in the running for a quarterback? Like was Romo a contract? Like why was Jerry so adamant? It was just like the allure of Manziel.
I think it was literally just because that was 2014. 14?
Yeah, 14, something like that. Yeah.
So Romo was sort of on the because I think Romo was kind of towards the tail end because Dak took over in 2016.
16, right? But
and it was late in the draft, right? What did he had? It was 24.
No, we had the 16th pick that year.
Was it 16?
And passed on him. Yeah.
All right.
And the Browns came in
and they won Zach. So I mean, he fell, but I got to tell you what, I was extremely happy.
Man, I was like, see, I was wanting a new quarterback because I was just tired of Romo getting hit and our season would be over as soon as he went down. So like, get someone who can take some punishment. But it's funny, like really pivoting, talk about Manziel, but you see today's NFL, and I feel like today he would have probably fit a lot more than he did back then because it's more free flowing. You're seeing the the Justin Herberts and the Jalen Hurts, like, hey, we're just going to build the system around you and just go play natural. But he had some demons that he was battling, so it's good to see that he is doing okay as of right now. But I love Manziel, man. So.
Me too. I saw a clip with Kyle Shanahan who was saying that exact point. He's like, he was set up to fail because the offense didn't fit and didn't cater to him.
Right.
He's not like a side-to-side runner. He can run up the middle, but that's how you get hit. So you have to build around that. Exactly. I think you'd be able to do that in this day and age, but at that time they weren't. And
right.
I mean, obviously, but you can't fly to Vegas in the middle of the season and go to Vegas.
Right. I think I still have my my what was it, Billy Manziel shirt that I used to wear to Vegas because when he put the glasses on and everything. So
I definitely have my Money Manziel shirt. In the back
I just saw those. I am about to hop on eBay after this and buy a few, man. See, they're probably like sky high right now, but I miss those shirts, man. Like
definitely. Oh man.
And now he's opening up his bar. So
yeah.
Oh, that's great. All right, we appreciate it. Before we get you out of here, as always, let everybody know where they can follow you, where they can watch you, where they can listen to you, because if you are a Cowboys fan, do not miss anything Tuck's putting out there.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on once again. So you can follow me on all social media platforms at JTuck151. That's Instagram, TikTok, X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it this week. JTuck151, man, I appreciate all the interactions with Cowboys fans and just NFL fans in general. It's going to be a fun season. I'm excited to get started tomorrow. I feel like a proud dad watching all my little draft kids. So you're like, oh, I remember you, like, I raised them, so like I'm excited about that tomorrow. But yeah, follow me on all social media platforms. And my YouTube channel is CFO Sports. I do a lot of film breakdowns throughout the week. Once the season starts, we'll start preparing, doing weekly prep for our opponents. Do a lot of draft content, live shows, just have fun talking football, man. So come on over, even if you're not a Cowboys fan. My community's trained like, hey, we welcome everybody except the trolls. But I appreciate all support, everyone, and hopefully everyone has a good NFL season. So thanks again for having me.
Appreciate it, Tuck.
Thank you.
Chris Hansen here, and I'm going to need you all to take a seat right over there and check out Birds versus Boys.
I think you're completely right here, and I hate it.
Hey, idiots. Stop doing dumb things. I got 2 phones. Upset alert. Upset alert. I might go insane.
I think you're already there.
There's no hope. Hope is gone. If this was an AFC North podcast, we'd be done in 15 minutes. Bob Hope. I'm going to drink bleach. That is
the team you promised me you were going to be this year.
This is the Consciously Hopeful podcast.
I'll be watching.